your guitar should inspire you to play. At the end of the day, when you sit down and pick up an instrument, doesn't even matter if it's an electric guitar or anything else. When you pick up an instrument, what is that experience about? Like playing guitar, if you step back and you look at what it is, for some people, yes, you make money at it. For some people, it's your job. For some people, it can be a financial thing. It can be a means to an end. But for most people like you and me, it's about the experience of playing the guitar. It's not about what other people think about it. It's not about how many likes or views it gets when you post about it. It's about the experience of sitting down, picking up an instrument, and playing. And for a long time, I found something that inspired me, and I didn't change it. And then I found this. This is a Fender Maverick Dorado, and it has inspired me in a whole new way. This is my favorite guitar, and a lot of people see it and they go, huh? It's not a guitar many people see and are like, yes, I need that. But for me, this guitar was like, it was a unique experience because it was the first and only time that I've ever seen a guitar and go, I don't care what I've got to sell, I need that guitar. This guitar is my favorite guitar. And a lot of the reviews and stuff you see on the internet about it are more about the collector's side. And so what this video is it's going to be using this guitar to kind of maybe help you reevaluate your guitar. Maybe help you reevaluate what guitars you're looking at, you're researching, what guitars you're thinking about buying, through what led me to pick up this and why I love it so much, and even the things that I don't like about it. So it's going to be half like a guitar philosophy, if you want to call it that, and it'll be half a review and explanation of this weird guitar. So if that's something, that piques your interest, stick around. I think it'll be helpful to you. So this guitar, Fender Maverick Dorado. It is a very unique guitar. It's a 2020. It's part of Fender's Parallel Universe series. And a thing to note about it is it has a really unique heritage. It's descended, and I use that word intentionally. It's descended from a guitar from the late 1960s that was really, really unique. There was a guitar back in the 1960s. Every major producer of guitars put out 12 strings. That was what sold at that time. That's what people were interested in. Fender did like that. Everybody else did. They put out the Fender 12, and it looks a lot like this guitar, and you'll understand why in a second if you don't already know. But they put out this. It was an offset guitar. It had really cool like split coil pickups. You see a lot in G&L guitars nowadays. It had a unique electronic system. It had the Mustang bridge. It had the same headstock. It's this cool, like, I use the word cool. Some people hate it, but it's like the field hockey stick / elf hat headstock. And it was really bare bones. It wasn't a fancy guitar for most of the offerings. And Fender overshot how much they thought they were going to sell of them. So they way over-ordered on the necks, they way over-ordered on the bodies, etc., etc. And Business 101 is if you have a product sitting around not selling, the quickest way to sell it is to modify it slightly, call it something else, and sell it again. That's what every good business does. That's what you do. That's why we have 60 years worth of 1950s Strat reissues and 1960s Les Paul reissues and all these same guitars that are really about the same thing. They're just maybe tweaked a little bit, a new pickup or a different paint color or a slight variation in the electron. Like, it works. Like, that's just business. It doesn't matter what business it is. If you offer a new product line, even if it's not really that different, well, you're going to get more sales. And so Fender had all these extra parts sitting around costing them money, and somebody told somebody, hey, can you do something with them to create a new product line? And somebody went, yeah, sure, I definitely can do that. And they took those same guitars and they decided we're going to make a 6-string out of it. And, well, we've got all these headstocks that have 12 holes in them. What are we going to do with them? Well, they filled in, could have been she, I don't know. They filled in 6 of the holes and they painted it so you couldn't see it, and then they took the body and they shaved this horn right here, and then these 2 like butt cut things that are brilliant, by the way. I think this is so cool. You see this element in a lot of guitars since, but I mean, it was just literally they took a grinder or something, a giant sander, and just and that's this guitar. They painted them, they sent them out, they called it the Fender Custom and the Fender Maverick. Editing Rex here. I was going through and making sure I didn't say things that were blatantly wrong or just blatantly dumb, and I'm pretty sure I did both. So let me correct myself. You definitely can find examples where they used a fancy fretboard with a dark wood. I think it was either ebony or rosewood. I'm not sure on that fact. Again, if you want like the details on the original of this guitar, go look up Mike from Pushing's video on it. Like, it doesn't get any better. He has one in his hands, and he shows you what he's talking about on the actual guitar. So go check that out. But I was definitely wrong about that. That there are it seems like that was what was sitting around in the factory floor was already completed necks that didn't have holes drilled in them. So there are some with painted headstocks that have filler in them. But that seems to be the exception in a run of extremely rare guitars to begin with rather than the rule. So most of them that I can find are plain headstocks that only have 6 holes and only ever had 6 holes. So I was wrong, sorry, but it doesn't change the fact that these were, to quote vintageguitar.com, floor sweep guitars. Guitars where they swept the floor for parts and put them together and sold them. That's still what happened. These are still not high-end fancy guitars. Okay, bye. And the Fender Maverick. I'm not sure which one came first, but this guitar sold so poorly that they did that same rebranding thing twice to it, right? You had the Fender 12, didn't sell enough of those, changed the shape, called it made it a 6-string, called it the Fender Custom. That didn't sell very much, and then they rebranded the Fender Maverick, and I'm assuming they sold out of them because they didn't put this guitar out anymore. And from that late 1960s run, that was it. This guitar never showed up again. It still hasn't been reissued. You know, there's no demand for this guitar. Nobody famous played it. And it's a really cool story. I mean, if you look at this guitar, it's weird. But it's not weird in the sense of like somebody sat down to design something weird. It's weird in the sense of like, this didn't start out like that, did it? Kind of weird. And I love that. It tells a story. Like this body shape and this headstock, there's more to it than just somebody's clever design. That's one of the things I love about this guitar. So that's the heritage this guitar has. But like I mentioned earlier, this guitar is part of the Fender Parallel Universe series. Fender's done a variation of this series all the way from their Squire line up to the high-end stuff. And basically what that series is, if you're unaware, is they take like things that shouldn't be put together or haven't been put together and put them together. And so you've gotten some really cool guitars out of this. The Troublemaker Tele, that guitar is super cool, where it's a true Les Paul Telecaster instead of like the Deluxe, which isn't quite that. You know, you've got the Jazzmaster with strap pickups in it and a rosewood body. You've got the Firebird Jazzmaster. I mean, you've got some really cool stuff that have come out of this. Those the Jazzmaster Squires with the Tele pickups and wiring and all that in it. Like they're just really, really cool guitars. Stuff that Fender isn't really known for doing. Where Fender's kind of known for putting out 1950s and 60s reissues every single year. This Parallel Universe stuff is really cool, but the thing to keep in mind is they're combining two different things that normally don't combine. Now, if you search this guitar, there's a few videos that show up. One of them is a guy named Trogley's, and Trogley's videos, I love Trogley's videos, are all like about from a collector's point of view. He looks at this guitar, he has some critiques about it. Some I agree with, some not so much. And then there's a guy named Mike who has a channel called Pushing. I think that's how you pronounce it. I love his channel. When it comes to offsets, that guy is an asset to the collector and the player community because the guy has so much knowledge and so much experience. He has hands-on experience working on those old vintage offsets. He was really disappointed when Fender came out with this guitar, and I completely understand why he would be. Because that guy loves those old vintage guitars. He sees this, and it's the closest that we've ever gotten to a reissue of those old Fender Maverick Customs. This isn't a reissue, though. And I get his heartbreak on it, but you can't expect this to be a reissue because that's not what it is. It wouldn't be in the Parallel Universe series. If you step back and look at the features on this thing, it starts to become obvious what the designer of it was trying to do. See, the Maverick, the Custom, it's as close to a Fender's parts caster that they've ever put out, I think. Right? Like they took a bunch of parts that weren't selling, mishmatched them up, carved them up, repainted them, rebranded them, and threw them out there. It was never popular. It was never a cool guitar to have. it was Fender's pawn shop guitar essentially. I know they put out pawn shop series this or that, but if you think about the most pawn shop worthy guitar they've ever done, I think it's the Fender Maverick Custom. But then they put all these high-end, flashy, slick features in it. Shiny paint job, Bigsby, a really nice fretboard. I'll explain all the features here in a second. And I think what they tried to do was combine the super slick, super shiny, super cool, super high-end Gretsch vibe with the parts caster guitar nobody wanted. Right? That's what I think this is. This is a combination of Gretsch vibe with Maverick Dorado parts caster guitar. I think that's what this is. And if you look at the features, it makes a lot of sense, right? So you've got an ebony fretboard with pearl or mother of pearl, or whatever they are, inlays. You've got binding on the neck. The color, oh my goodness, the color, right? Right. So from a philosophical perspective, your guitar, like, you should like the way it looks. I think. I don't think you should. If it's your main guitar, you don't think you should be like, you should hate the way it looks. This color, just, man, like, Fender has not put this color on very many guitars. It's called Mystic Pine, and I've only found 4 guitars they put it on. I'm sure there's more, I'm not that knowledgeable. But it's like a Sherwood green, but a little bit darker, but it's got this really cool sparkle in it. The color alone, I saw it and I was like, I need that. This is pretty much my favorite color ever. That with the tortoise pickguard, I think it's a beautiful color scheme. But then you take the Bigsby, which was a Gretsch thing originally. I believe that's who were the original holders of it. Then Gibson got their hands on it. You've got these Filtertron looking pickups. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that that's what this is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a mishmash of Gretsch and the Fender Custom. Now, so you got kind of a high and low thing going on. Now, the guitar isn't perfect, right? Like, I saw it, I played it, I love it. This is my favorite guitar. It checks almost all the boxes for me. The neck is a big old fat baseball neck, I think it's a D shape or whatever. All the specs and stuff are online in other videos. That's not really what this is about, but just be aware of that if you ever look into them. I love it. I'm 6'7", so the big fat neck thing, I like baseball bat necks. But, you do you. Some of you guys like those wizard necks on Ibanez's, so, to each his own. Anyways, so the things I don't like about this guitar, right? Let's get to that. The Bigsby. I love the Bigsby. But for a guitar that brand new is $2,000, it shouldn't be a licensed Bigsby. That's what it says right here. Bigsby licensed. Now, I don't think playability-wise there's going to be any difference. Like, Fender owns Bigsby now. At least I'm pretty sure they do. This is probably just as good as the real thing. I mean, it's literally the exact same specs, but it says licensed on it. Come on, Fender. Like, for a guitar this expensive, yeah, it shouldn't say licensed. It should be an actual Bigsby. As far as playability goes, I don't see any reason why this would be any worse than the real deal. So from a playing standpoint, not really a big deal. But from a price point, yeah, this should be the real deal. The bridge, I love the bridge. That's the one thing, like, I've always kind of liked Gibson's direction over Fender's. I like the Tune-o-matic bridges. I don't like the geometry here. I'll show it and roll in some video. You can see that the strings actually touch the bridge on 2 places. That's not a good sign. Typically, that causes premature string breakage and tuning problems. I don't experience any of that with these. I've only broken 1 string on this guitar, and I play it almost every day, and it stays in tune very, very well. But I'm not a big fan of the fact that that's touching in 2 places, so I'll probably be switching that out eventually. But as long as I don't have any issues with it, I'm not going to be in a big rush. The big thing I'm really not happy about with this guitar are the pickups. All right, Fender owns Gretsch. Okay, Gretsch was the thing that the Dorado was being married with here, right? High low. Gretsch's are the Filtertron sound. That's like, for the longest time, the only place you could get that sound. I love that sound. That's what I want most. That's my favorite pickup, is the Filtertron. Fender said, okay, let's do that. And they put these in it. These look like Filtertrons, but they're not. They're Filtertron-sized humbuckers. And I'm pretty sure the guy's name is Tim Shaw, who designed them. And Tim Shaw, He was famous for designing pickups for Gibson in the 80s. I like Gibsons, not typically a Gibson guy, but I like them. I have a Les Paul. And I've all the Gibsons I've ever played have typically been the Les Pauls and SGs. And the two eras that I hate the most and have not liked at all really were ones I played in the 2000s and in the 80s, right? So in the 80s is when Tim Shaw was designing Gibson. So I should have known, like, I'm not really going to gel with these. People love those pickups. Like, I'm not bashing them. I'm just saying, like, I didn't like those, so I probably should have expected not to like these pickups. But I've also had two other guitars that he's designed for Fender pickup-wise, and I didn't like those either. I had the American Pro 2 Strat with just 3 single coils. Didn't like those. I prefer the Ventura 60s pickups. And then I had the American Pro 2 Tele Deluxe. Didn't like those at all. Sold both of those guitars, as a matter of fact, because of that. So I should have expected to have a similar experience when I got this guitar. And yeah, it didn't let me down. But you know, because they're not bright enough to be considered mini humbuckers, and the holes are too big to put mini humbuckers in it, so you can't do that. They're definitely not Firebird style pickups. But the hole's not big enough to put a full humbucker in it. So you're kind of stuck with trying to figure out how to find a Filtertron to put in this. And it's just really frustrating because while there's been a lot of growth in the Filtertron offerings in the last few years, it's still really difficult because you've got Fender spacing, but then you've got Gretsch size mounting, and most guitars don't have the 3-hole setup like you see here. So it's just been kind of a headache trying to figure out how to swap these out. I've seen one on Reverb where somebody just drilled the hole and did a single or a 2 screws, 1 screw per side thing there, and I don't want to do that, especially on this expensive of a guitar. The solution I came up with was actually from Fralin. Lindy Fralin. He put out the Fralintron, and they actually offer a Gretsch mounting system. I tried several companies, and they were the ones that said, hey, yeah, absolutely. I actually had it on their website as an offering. So if you have one of these and you're like fighting this fight, like Fralintrons, I'll have a video eventually of how I installed these and that kind of deal. But to get back to my frustration with this, it's like, Fender, come on. Like the dude who designed these has designed pickups for Gretsch. The new, the guy who plays for Hillsong United just put out a Gretsch guitar, and it has Filtertrons in it that dude designed. Like, he could have put those in here. I don't know who made that decision, but it just seems like a ball got dropped there, right? So at the end of the day, though, this still is my favorite guitar. And it's weird, and it's odd, and it's not one that you see a lot of people play. As a matter of fact, I've never seen anybody else play it. And my point here is not to sell you this guitar. My point here is to sell you a different mindset when you go about looking for a guitar. I saw this guitar, and it spoke to me. I ordered it without playing it. It's usually not a good idea. But when it got here, it makes me want to play guitar more. And that should be what it's about when you sit down and play guitar. Because it's about the experience. Yes, you know, some of you guys are out there, you know, you're playing shows. I play regularly in my church, and I enjoy that. I wouldn't consider that a show. I'd consider it a little more important. But that aside, it's like most of what I do when I play, it's for me. It's for my experience. It's for my enjoyment. It's for me to be able to express myself. It's for me to be able to think beyond using words. It's for me to challenge myself, to grow at something, to get better at something, to work at something. And at the end of the day, if your guitar doesn't inspire you to do that, you might need a new guitar. Just something to think about. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I love to talk shop all day long. Otherwise, see you in the next one.